So we've got two courses that essentially fall under the banner of media and communications, with the postgraduate course and the undergraduate course. The postgraduate course was actually going through a course rewrite. So we had to rewrite the course, and essentially what we had to do was fold in new ways of learning and new ways of teaching. And one of the things that we'd always wanted to do was to integrate social and digital media into the classroom. And I'd had an industry background, having worked in social media and web media and digital media. One of the things that we kind of came up on very quickly was the idea that we wanted students to have a view of the outside world and thinking about starting to see themselves as professionals the day they walk into the classrooms. And one of the things most professionals have is a personal website or some form of portfolio that they would present to, say, a potential employer or potentially a funder that they're looking to get on board onto a project. So for us, it became a key component of essentially the course rewrite on the postgraduate course, which is the MA in Communication, Culture and Media. But then also thinking about the learning from that, we could then fold into our undergraduate courses. So one of the ways that we've integrated Coventry.Domains is in the way in which students approach what is essentially the core strand of the entire course year, which is what we've called a research practice portfolio. So this is something that's informed by teaching in the classroom. So each of the modules has a specific view that's tied into the research practice portfolio. So in semester one, we have the core modules where each student has to take the core modules, and they have weekly tasks that they have to put up on their blogs. But then we also have in semester two optional modules where the students can pick a module that they want to be on. But also through the course of the year, what they have is a single session in an afternoon on a Wednesday where we are looking at upskilling them. So it could be digital literacy, it could be research-based skills. It could be stuff where it's on an ad hoc basis. So we run things known as lo-fi labs, where they come in with problems and we find solutions that are really the kind of rough and tumble. So you're sort of saying we've got all the technology and the resource that is in the school, but what we also do is that on a personal level, each person brings resources themselves. So the digital tools that they already own, like mobile phones and tablets. And we use those and try and get them thinking about how they integrate those into a professional workflow. That then pushes them onto a final piece of work that they would have to design themselves. Like, one of the things that we found is that there's a huge difference in how students use digital tools and platform on a personal level compared to, say, when we ask them to come into the classroom. And one of the ways is the example of, when we ask them to enter a URL into a web browser, and then they pull up Google, and then they type the URL into Google, and then they say, well, I can't go on the website, and and you're saying, well, actually, no. What you're doing is you're doing something that has been ingrained in you, and how to use something like a web browser. So the assumption that Google is the internet for most of them is something that we quickly have to try and sort of unbundle and kind of get them out of. In terms of the attitudes, what we find is that there's also a fear of technology for some of our students, especially students that come from countries where the technology is not built into the learning environment. So what we have to do is have a sort of a transcultural approach to how we get students to approach technology. So we have to strip the fear element out of it. And we have to say, in actual fact, you're the person that's in control of this thing. And the thing that I love saying to them is something like, using WordPress, you can't really break anything because we can fix it, or we can back everything up and restore it again. So what you have to do is essentially go through and see if you can break something. Because if you do break it, you'll learn something out of that. I guess the only thing to say about personal engagement, the only thing that I forgot, is that it also gets us thinking about how we as staff need to integrate a lot of this stuff into our own practice in terms of research, in terms of professional practice. And it's kind of given us an opportunity to, where the students reflect. Because they're saying that a student group reflects the teaching staff, and that's one of the things that's kind of given us a real sort of you know, a kick, essentially, a kick forward to say, right, we need to get better at also using these things ourselves. It can't just be we turn up to the classroom and say, you do as I do. It has to be a sense of not do as I say, but it has to be a sense of do as I do as well. So a lot of our staff have now gone on to say, right, okay, I have to be able to use this stuff as well. I have to be able to understand how you use a website or you set up a website yourself, how you start blogging, how you start thinking about putting content out. It's been a very rewarding process going through using the actual project itself. And one of the most rewarding things about it is getting students thinking about the fact that it is possible for them to see themselves as professionals, right? So, they come in and they think that they don't know anything. And when you sat down with them and shown them the setup process, which is dead simple, and then said, okay, now this is yours, what you have to do, you have to go off and do something like change the theme or create a menu or, put up your first blog post. I think that's a very powerful way of teaching, because it essentially pulls you away from the student and allows the student to start kind of exploring things. And that's what I'm really passionate about, things that are self-taught, because a lot of the stuff that I know, I'm self-taught. It's been a very powerful, on a very beguiling way, a very powerful way for students to uncover skills that they didn't know that they had. And I think it should be rolled out to as many schools as possible, because I don't think that it only relates to media-based courses or arts-based courses. I think it has very powerful applications in, technical-based subjects, and it has the power to really kind of get students owning their own learning, which is one of the things that the university is so passionate about.